Tonight on Politics Unplugged, the new chairwoman of the Arizona Democratic Party stops by to talk about her plans to keep the top elected offices in Arizona from shifting into Republican hands. Plus, the governor officially announced her reelection campaign. Will voters give her another 4 years?
With all due respect, let me finish. Wait, let me answer the question. You're going to ask it.
And tensions were running high on Capitol Hill as the shutdown dragged on. Our panel weighs in now on Politics Unplugged.
And good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged, and it's been a rough year for leadership in the state Democratic Party, with a new chair taking office and then quickly being shown the door. And now there's another new chair on board, Charlene Fernandez, the former minority leader in the state house, and she joins us now. Thank you for being here. Let's just start with the basic questions here. You're taking over a party with a whole lot of problems. You got problems with the perception. You look at the polling numbers, the branding of the Democratic Party is down. There's been money problems at the Democratic Party, and just as importantly, registration problems. What's the core problem with the Democratic Party, and how do you want to address that?
Well, you look at those as problems. I look at them as challenges, and I think we can overcome them. I know we can. Voter registration, we are already putting together a plan to make sure that we're out there registering people to vote, but there will be, thousands of people out there registering people to vote. That's our plan, to make sure we build some unity at the Arizona State Legislature. I think that's the underlying problem, is that we haven't been unified. We have to keep our eye on the prize, talk about the issues that are affecting everyday families.
Sure, and I get you want to unify the party and all that, but you also have to grow the numbers. Right now, I mean, it's a real problem. I believe the gap between Democrats and Republicans, over 300,000 Republicans have that edge over you. That is a very significant problem heading into an election year. Statewide candidates like Katie Hobbs, Adrian Fontes, Chris Mays, they're going to have to attract more Republicans now than they did 3 or 4 years ago because of that. What's been the problem registering voters? How come they're not interested in becoming registered members of the Democratic Party?
I don't think we've told our story and listened to their stories and tell them that we are here for them. Like I said, we're talking about those issues that affect everyday families. Go to the grocery store and see what the cost of groceries is. Drive to the grocery store and see how much it costs you to fill up your car. It's ridiculous. So we're talking about those issues, how it's affecting them and their children. And we've forgotten to do that, to connect with people. And that's what we will be doing throughout Arizona, not just here in Maricopa, not just in Pima, but the 13 rural areas.
So what is the simple message? What is the simple identity of the Democrats that you'd like to see? And I'm asking this because during the height of the campaign last year, I was always struck by one of the news outlets was interviewing somebody in Pennsylvania, and they were talking to him about why they supported Trump, and he said, well, he's really smart. He put an entire campaign on a hat, Make America Great Again. Whether you agree with his politics or not, the branding there, it fit on a hat. What would you like, if you had a hat, if you had to just boil it down to its essence, what would you like the story of the Democratic Party in Arizona to be?
I think the story is happening right now with health care. We see that over 333,000 people here in Arizona could be affected by the Affordable Care Act and the fight that's happening in Congress right now. That's a fight that we should have, because this is about our babies. This is not about billionaires. You can put that on a cap.
Now, you're talking about, that's the holdup at the shutdown right now. The Democrats are holding on because the Obamacare subsidies are set to expire at the end of the year unless they are extended by this Congress. My question to you on that is, how do you make sure, like, let's say President Trump gives in on this and Republicans give in on this and they do extend those subsidies. How do you Democrats take credit for that and make sure they get credit for something like that? Because I could see a situation where Trump comes out and says, we extended the tax credits, and he could take credit for the win himself.
On the backs of who? Every single one of our federal workers that are furloughed today because of them deciding that they were not going to support this. This should have been not even a question. From the get-go, they should have been supporting these subsidies. The Affordable Care Act is one of the most popular acts that has ever happened in our Congress. It's right up there with Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid. So people need to start thinking about that, and we have to start talking about those stories.
Okay. Let me talk to you too. Part of the job here is recruiting candidates. I know it's a little bit late in the game at this point to start really recruiting a whole lot of candidates, but would you like to see a different kind of candidate run in Arizona? We're seeing candidate, everybody's talking about Zoran Mondani, the Democratic candidate for mayor in New York City. He's run on a very progressive, very populist platform, free buses, free transit, government-run grocery stores, these kinds of things. I mean, they may not be issues that would work anywhere else, but I've spoken to some local Democrats here, and they kind of bristle when you bring him up, saying that that's not something that would work. Do you think a more progressive, populist message could work here, or do you think Democrat candidates that you want to recruit need to tack more to the center?
Well, I think he's an excellent candidate, but we've got one right here with Governor Hobbs. She's never lost an election, and she's talking about those issues that are important to people right now. What's happening at the grocery store, what's happening when you drive your car, and what's happening with health care. She was able to put, with a Republican-run legislature, she was able to get scholarships to junior college students. This is what's important to people here today in our rural areas in Maricopa and Pima County, and those are the issues we need to talk about.
Yeah, and how do you get the governor across the finish line as the party? What are you guys planning to do? Because again, I go back to the registration numbers. It's going to be a steeper hill to climb, I think, this time around, even though she is the incumbent governor, and there's a lot of advantages that go with that.
Yes.
But that said, you look at those registration numbers, could be a really steep challenge.
We have a lot of independents that still vote Democrat. We know that. We have to talk about what we are able to do with all these unsurmountable obstacles that we've had at the Arizona State Legislature. She's able to surpass that. We are going to be able to get her to the top, and it's not going to be on election. It's not going to be 7 days after election night. It's going to be on election night. And the same goes for our AG and for our Secretary of State, Mays and Fontes.
Now, you've been the head of the party now for what, about a month now?
About 21 days.
Okay, about 21 days. So where is the party around? Because again, there was money issues. There were staffing issues. Where is the party now at this?
We're doing really well, and the phone calls are great. I've raised, in just those 21 days, I've raised over $200,000. Okay. And this is just by calling people and reminding them, new sheriff in town, and the work that we're doing, and they want to be involved. They want to talk about voter registration. They want to talk about people coming out and having town halls in their area. So I think people are really excited about the prospect of big wins in November 2026.
And you do see, like, again, do you see any hope, too, about winning control of the legislature? Because you're talking about Governor Hobbs, and she has been the Democrat governor fighting with the Republican-controlled legislature. And it seems like every 2 years, at least for the past decade or so, Democrats seem hopeful that they can take the House or the Senate. But like Lucy with the football and the Charlie Brown, it just seems like it just never happens. What can you do to make sure or try to put Democrats in a better position to take control of one of those chambers?
Dennis, I was right there in the middle of it. When I walked into the legislature, there was 22 of us. When I left, there was 29. And what was the difference is we went out into those rural areas to talk to people and listen to their stories and find out what is going on in their areas, and giving them the budget and asking them if this represented their values. Whether they're Republican, Democrat, or independent, the budget at the Arizona legislature does not represent their values.
And just real quick, what do you think the chances are Democrats take control of either the Senate or the House?
I am always hopeful that we'll just sweep it.
All right, we'll have to end it right there. Thank you very much for stopping by. Charlene Fernandez, the chairwoman of the Arizona Democratic Party. Thanks for being here. Still ahead, Governor Hobbs announces her run for re-election. Our panel looks at how the race is shaping up when Politics Unplugged continues.
It's time for your weekly political roundup. We start with Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. She officially launched her re-election campaign, pitching herself as the champion for every Arizonan. And it's been a week since Republican Congressman David Schweikert announced he's running for governor, and so far no GOP candidates have stepped up to replace him. On Capitol Hill, Arizona's Democratic senators confronted Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson over the government shutdown and the Epstein list. And finally, after President Trump sent the National Guard to Illinois, a federal judge temporarily blocked the commander-in-chief from deploying the troops in Chicago.
Time now to bring in the panel to talk about all of that. Republican consultant Wes Gullett and Democrat Roy Herrera. Thank you both for being here. Let's start with the governor's big announcement this week. What was your takeaway from that?
It was a strong announcement. It was a strong rollout. I think she's in a really strong position going into next year, both because of her record, as she touched on in her video, of passing tax cuts for the middle class, for funding public safety and border security. You combine that record with the fact that her fundraising is doing really well and is going to break records. Also with the fact that the Republicans are facing a three-way primary. Who knows who's going to come out of that? My guess is it's going to be Andy Biggs, who's going to be the most extreme candidate of the three. So I think she's in a really, really strong position going into next year.
Yeah, and in the announcement video, they were really trying to pitch Hobbs as not only the governor for every Arizonan, but as the tough executive. Do you think voters are going to buy that? That she's the tough executive?
Set a record for vetoes. So, and that's pretty tough. You get vetoing legislation is always hard. But the enthusiasm is what's got to increase with the Democratic Party. The lack of enthusiasm is palpable, I think. And so once they got to get that going, and they've got to register some voters. The Republicans have been doing an outstanding job registering voters. We saw that in this last election. Do
you agree with Charlene Fernandez on the first segment there? Said part of the problem with registration is they're not telling a good enough story. You buy that? and then when you asked, what's your hat going to say? She talked for 20 minutes about health care. That's not a winning strategy. Put on the hat. Arizona Democrats fighting for you. That's a winning message. And what do you think the governor's going to be able to run on that's going to connect to voters out there?
Well, I touched on a few of the sort of the policy accomplishments. I mean, I could also think about the things that she's done to address our water issues, affordable housing, et cetera, which are all very real things. But I also think it is a good contrast to look at her record and her executive, authority and leadership, and compare that to what's happening in Washington, D.C., because this is a place where she has been able to pass budgets in a bipartisan manner here that include the kind of accomplishments that I'm talking about. Meanwhile, in D.C., it's absolute chaos over there with the government shutdown and all of that. So you talk a little bit about, obviously the Democratic Party's issues that they've had. Some of that I do think is the sort of after effects of President Biden and everything that happened there. But I do think things like health care, the things that the federal Democrats are fighting for, are good winning issues because ultimately people don't want to see their healthcare costs go up.
And we talked about, we've been mentioning throughout the show that there are a lot more Republicans registered than Democrats. So that means the governor's going to have to appeal to more Republicans than she did a few years ago. What should the message from her be to those Republicans?
Well, again, I think it's going to be, and that's true, and that's always been true in Arizona. I mean, the nature of the states, particularly the statewide races, are always very tight. You're always going to have to get independents and some members of the opposite party to be with you. But I think, again, thinking about the things that she's doing to cut costs for middle-class Arizonans, the border security, increasing salaries for law enforcement, those are things I think are going to appeal to Republicans. And again, comparing this to what happens in D.C. and the chaos in D.C. Because the other underlying factor here, of course, is it's a midterm election. So a lot of what happens next year is going to be based on what do we think about President Trump's performance. We've already seen his numbers go way down since he was inaugurated. I can't imagine that's going to change going into next year.
And do you think the competitive three-way primary in the Republican side is going to help or hurt the party? Because you can make arguments both ways. You're going to have three people, going at each other, tooth and hammer and tooth and nail. But you could also see that it raises the profile of that race, and it's going to get more attention than Katie Hobbs will.
It will. There's no question about that. And when you're in a tough primary, you're out there, you're working the grassroots, you're on the ground, you're fighting every day, you're making friends. The trick will be, does the Republican Party come back together after a three-way tough at the top of the ticket primary? And if they do, it'll be very challenging. I work for a governor who is up for re-election. There's a lot of power in the incumbency. And we had our struggles. We were 29 points down 6 weeks before the election. However, we all came together and used the power of the incumbency, and we're out there with the people. That's what Katie Hobbs has to do. She's got to keep a high profile with the people and be out there campaigning every single day, touching people.
Yeah, and that is interesting and kind of a question I didn't plan to ask, but do you think over the last 3 years the governor has learned how to wield the power of the executive?
Well, I haven't seen it, but there's still plenty of time. Shockingly, it seems like the election's right around the corner. There's still plenty of time, and so and part of that is the bully pulpit. When she calls a press conference, everybody shows up.
Well, let's shift now. Let's talk a little bit about the congressional one race. It's been, a week since Schweikert announced he's going to run for governor, leaving open that seat. Yet, as we're taping right now, Friday morning, there's been no official candidate who has jumped into that primary. I've never seen anything like that. Have you?
No, it's a bit strange. Now, my guess is what's happening is all of them are jockeying for the President Trump endorsement and talking to people at the White House to see who he's going to be behind. But the dynamic that's going to ultimately play out in that primary, I think, is going to be similar to the dynamic in the governor's race on the Republican side, which is there's going to be a turning point-backed candidate, and the question is turning point going to get that person across the finish line? And if you're a Democrat, you want that turning point candidate ultimately, because that person is going to be more extreme and is going to be easier to beat in a general election. So whatever happens in CD1, I think we're going to see a turning point person and then perhaps a couple of other more mainstream Republicans.
I heard Carrie Lake is going to run.
Well, that would be
and
great.
if Carrie Lake is going to run, then there's going to be, that freezes out the primary.
Okay.
So you don't want to announce, if you're Matt Gress, you don't want to announce, I'm going to run, and then Carrie Lake gets in the race, and you're like, oh, I'm going to run for the House again at the legislature.
Have you seen anything like this? I mean, you look over the Democrat side. There's like, what,
dozen
people running in that primary?
When Barry Goldwater announced he was going to step down, John McCain announced the next day that he was running for the Senate.
I think he then bought a house in the district.
And Bob Stumpwood never forgave him for it. He's like, that was my job. No. It's whoever's fastest. But with this Carrie Lake thing out there, and I heard about it from a Democrat. So, but I think if that's real, it freezes up the whole thing because her name ID is so strong.
All right, Wes Gullett breaking some news right here. All right, we're gonna have
Not that I want it, but
gonna have to take a quick break here. But when we come back, the government shutdown drags on, and Arizona's senators get into a confrontation with the House Speaker. That's next, right here on Politics Unplugged. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast. This week, I'm joined by Amish Shah, the Democrat running for Congress in CD1. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening wherever you get your podcasts. And let's bring the panel back in now to continue this wonderful conversation. Shutdown, deja vu all over again, right? It looks like it's going to continue to drag on at least until Tuesday of next week. Do you see an end in sight on this?
Well, in 2018, what drove them to come back together and pass a budget and fund things was TSA people stopped coming to work. And as soon as that happens and the airports shut down, then they got to do it, because people we can't operate our economy without our airports.
And let me ask you, and I asked the party chairwoman of this, I find this to be a fascinating question. If Trump does give in to Democrat demands, extend those Obamacare tax credits that are set to expire, he's going to take credit for that. Are Democrats worried that that maybe they get what they want, but they don't get credit for it heading into the midterms?
I don't think so, both because, it is the right thing to do. I mean, we're there for a reason. Elected officials are there for a reason, which is to make lives better for people. And obviously, if nothing gets done in this area and those subsidies expire, then everyone's healthcare premiums are going to go way up. This is also happening, in the wake of the Big Beautiful Bill, which had all kinds of cuts to healthcare benefits. And, the simple fact remains is that Republicans control every branch of government. They want Democratic votes to reopen the government. The Democrats have said, hey, we want to help people not see their healthcare costs increase. So let's do a deal. And the problem that I see here, why I'm a little pessimistic, is Republican House members aren't even in D.C. I mean, there's really no negotiations going on right now. That has to change. But to Wes's point, once you start seeing, military not getting paid, once you start seeing the airports have to shut down, the pressure is going to increase.
Well, once you miss one paycheck, but then when you're thinking you're going to miss a second paycheck, why are you coming to work? And even though they told the air traffic controllers you're going to get fired. They can't fire any air traffic controllers. There aren't enough of them. So the Republicans are up against the wall on this, and they've got to compromise. You either have your votes if you're in the majority and you get stuff done, or you compromise. That's the way it works.
Let me ask you about the raw politics of this. Is it a mistake on the Democrats' part to save Donald Trump from himself on this, or at least attempt to save Donald Trump from himself and let these Obamacare tax credits expire at the end?
I don't think that Democrats can help themselves because they're trying to help the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're using the exchange and it's going to go away, and you're going to have higher premiums, which I pay private, it's much higher than on the exchange. Mm-hmm. They're trying to do the right thing, mm-hmm. and hats off to that. But
just from a raw political point,
if you want to be if you want to win, mm-hmm. you've got to play tough. Mm-hmm. And so this, he's played it all perfectly mm-hmm. so far.
And talk about playing things tough. We saw some tough political theater here over the past week. We saw the senators Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego go out in front of House Speaker Johnson's office and confront him over this. Now, I know you've done work, I think, for one or both of those candidates, mm-hmm. So I want to disclose that. But I do want to get your take as whether or not this is an effective strategy from Democrats on their part to go confront the speaker like this, because they are wrapping up the shutdown with the Epstein list and Adelita Grijalva, the new Congresswoman-elect who is yet to be sworn into office, and they're wrapping it all up into one thing and confronting the speaker about it.
Well, I think the speaker is the one that's wrapping it all up. I mean, I think ultimately what the confrontation was about is making sure that the Congresswoman-elect Grijalva gets seated. I mean, we're in an unprecedented situation where the speaker is withholding having her sworn in, even though earlier this year with two Republican elects from Florida, they were immediately sworn in within 24 hours. So it is the speaker saying, well, I'm not going to seat her until we have a fix on the government shutdown and it reopens. So it's really on him, but all of this is completely unprecedented and really a bad sign going forward, because no speaker, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, should be preventing a particular district from having their representation.
Yeah, and Democrats accusing the speaker of withholding the swearing in because she is already committed to be the key 218th vote that's needed for this discharge petition to move forward on a vote to release the so-called Epstein list. Do you think when Gallego confronts the speaker and starts yelling at him, "Stop protecting pedophiles," that's an effective strategy?
I don't think people get the context there, mm-hmm. and so it kind of is a little bit lost, but it's exactly what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so it needs a little more context behind it, because you have to really kind of study that mm-hmm. to understand it. I don't know that people are getting that kind of information, that kind of detail. And so it might not be exactly the most statesmanlike thing, mm-hmm. but Ruben's been very effective. So I'm not going to second guess him. He's a senator and I'm not.
Any other leverage that Democrats can play? I mean, can use in this as this shutdown continues? Because again, we've mentioned it over and over again. Democrats don't have any power in Capitol Hill right now. But is there anything else in their bag of tricks that can bring out here as looking to end this shutdown?
Well, it's kind of what Wes said. I mean, there is a new reality of politics on how you get attention and take advantage of the news cycle. And I do think Democrats are doing a great job going out there every day on TV saying, we could reopen the government if you just agree to extend these subsidies and help people. It's a pretty simple message in that sense. And that's going to continue on and on as we go. And then also, as we mentioned earlier, once the paychecks stop coming for the military and others, it's only going to ramp up the pressure, because ultimately Republicans are in charge.
All right, going to end it right there. That's all the time we have. But be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.